I feel like my homework now is think about when, at what point in the conversation, I bring that question up. And the question's easy. It's just, what are you looking for? Why were you on Tinder? What are you interested in? And so my question in general to the world is, does that happen before the first kiss?
Welcome to the Conversation Factory. I'm your host, Daniel Stillman. Each episode, I'll talk to an amazing conversation designer to try and distill insights we can all bring into our work and lives. Human conversation is a material that can be shaped by design, and shifting conversations in everyday meetings, in organizations, and yourself can create real change. And I hope to help you do it better and more authentically. I'd love to have you stay part of the conversation. Head over to theconversationfactory.com to sign up for my newsletter and never miss an episode. That's theconversationfactory.com. I'd also love for you to be part of the show. If there's a challenging transformation you're working through, head over to theconversationfactory.com, click coaching, and sign up for 30 minutes of free coaching that I might use on the show. Head over to theconversationfactory.com, hit coaching, and let me know what conversations you need help redesigning. Enjoy the episode. So the thing that I've been working on, I'll give you a little background of where I'm coming from, and then I'd love to hear what you're working on and what I can maybe help you with. And I started this podcast primarily because I was interested in this idea of applying the tools of experience design to all of these other avenues and areas of our lives. I started to realize that design thinking and facilitation, which are two things that seem unrelated, were linked by this idea that it's just a bunch of human conversations that we are, shaping, right? And product design is shaping human conversations. And so I've started to do a lot of interviews with various people around different conversations that they are good at shaping and transforming. And it's been a really amazing journey so far.
That's interesting.
About a year ago, I started talking to some friends of mine about this idea of conversation design. And the primary question was what conversations shouldn't you design? Well,
it's an interesting way to phrase it too, because I feel like conversations, it makes it sound to me on at a glance like making conversations more strategic. Is that what you're saying?
Well, no. So yes, and one of the things I've realized is that and this is where I think it would be interesting to hear from you is I primarily think of conversations in 4 domains, and there are these strategic domains of team design and organization design, but there's also community design and cultivation of community conversations, right, which are related to companies. And then there's also the conversation that one has with oneself.
Wait, so can you define conversation for me? Because I think you're using it in a very broad sense, maybe.
I am. I use it in a very broad sense. I think of a conversation as, I think people often think dialogue is one way to define a conversation. I'm reading a Dave Boehm's book on dialogue, and he talks about a true conversation is one where people
that's
have
what I thought you were referring to.
A shared pool of meaning that they're pulling from. But, people use conversation in a lot of intentional and unintentional ways. When people say they want to shift the conversation about a brand, or they want to.
Oh, I see.
And so I think those are.
Do people understand that when you start talking to them about this, or no?
No, not always, and that's and I think I'm okay with that because one of the things.
You're using it in a very commercial marketing sense, basically.
Well, I feel like yes, and I also think about do you have for example, do you have a reflective practice for yourself?
It would be my Monday night men's group.
Yeah. And so that is and those events, that Monday night men's group is designed, right? There's a certain catechism almost where certain things happen each time.
Yeah.
And so I would say those are conversations that get designed.
Got it.
one of the things that I do is, and sometimes fail to do, is like my morning pages, which is
Yeah.
a dialogue I set up with my own internal psychic rhythms to
Yeah.
make sure that I'm tapping into whatever it is I need to tap into, or tapping out of whatever I need to tap out of.
That's from the Artist's Way. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The Artist Way is big
Yeah.
into that, and
I read that.
a friend of mine is turning me onto the 5 minute journal
Oh, cool.
to sort of maybe strip things down, and I
Yeah.
keep a gratitude journal myself.
Cool.
So
Okay.
I'm curious, like thinking of all the different conversations in your life. There's this men's conversation. I don't know
Yeah.
what sort of relationship situation you're in, your business, the community that helps support your
Sure.
business. Like, which of those conversations do you think are working really well, and which ones
Okay.
are maybe not working so well?
Okay. And I need to redefine conversation. It's kind of like a mode of being,
Mm,
or like, is that what, I mean, yeah, I think I understand. So, ones that are working well are a Monday night group is wonderful. Um, my business life is great. I'm maybe 75% to where I want to be, but I'll probably always be 75% to where I want to be if I continue making new goals. Um, or maybe, yeah. And, but I'm like extremely satisfied and happy with and I'm not starving and I'm not broke or
yeah.
going bankrupt or anything. Um, and my personal life is probably the one that's the most lacking, but not, but by choice.
Mm,
And so in that realm, I'm I think I'm still defining what I want,
mm,
and a part of me believes that I don't want to be in a relationship with anyone, but
mm,
I also want to be connected with people. Like I'm straight, uh, heterosexual, but I don't I just think that relationships are a trap sometimes, and most of the time actually. And so I'm very hesitant to like want to commit to anyone,
yeah.
which puts me in the realm of like something like a player, I think, or I call it decidedly non-monogamous, but it's very much not like with the mainstream view, and so I constantly feel guilty or a little bit off.
That's really
But I think
interesting.
I would feel guilty and a little bit off if I did it the other way and just went into a relationship because I don't think I'd be being true to myself.
Yeah, no.
So I'm in limbo there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. What don't you think you're, I mean, besides sex, like what aren't you
Yeah.
getting from the men's group? Like, is there an aspect of the connection that you're getting from the men's group that is not sufficient in terms of like
Uh,
companionship?
um, no, it would just be sex, probably. It would be the physical part. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, because that is like almost the complete. The men's group is a funny example because it's not a monogamous sort of thing. I'm interacting with like seven or ten, eight different people,
Mm,
all of whom serve different sort of functions in my life. Sometimes it's just a Monday night interaction, but if I were to hang out with any one of them is my friend and we talk about relationships. One is my friend and we like go to the movies, and
mm,
one is a guy and we like just philosophize about life or push each other to like better business goals like Jeremy.
yeah.
And so I appreciate that dynamic because I have like a multifaceted unit there,
Yeah.
right?
No,
Like the
totally.
perfect girl for me would be a combination of five different girls that I'm currently seeing, or you know what I mean?
Right, which is
Yeah,
a hard bar to pass.
yeah.
Well, so there's
So yeah, it would be the physical part.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Do you have female friends?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, because I
Um,
certainly find that sort of
yeah.
that companionship can be really fulfilling.
Yeah, I definitely do. And they happen just they're the ones who are already in relationships or married or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah, I definitely do. And I tend more towards female friends than guy friends. So it's nice to have the men's group because it sort of forces me to find guys who
yeah,
I connect with in that way.
Thinking about like the arc of a conversation that you have
Hmm.
with a woman that you might be dating, like if we were to map it out,
Hmm.
where do you feel like where do you feel like you stop being honest about what you need? Where
Mm.
do you feel like you are hiding your true
Yeah.
intentions?
Um, I would say around, it would be like around date 4 or 5. I mean, it'd be to the point like just before we're about to have sex, maybe because probably at that point I haven't, like, I don't really start a first date with being like, I don't believe in relationships. And
Mm.
so
Yes, that's not a good way to start off that conversation, though.
but that's only assuming that they really do believe in relationships. And so there's a lot of assumptions, I think, being made on both sides. One, that I'm there to like find my partner for life, maybe.
Mm.
Um, and I'm kind of assuming that they are in that realm somewhere too, and I happen to not be, and they may or may not be also. So I find that like just I've been learning to do this better in the past year, but the simple question of like, so what are you looking for? Doesn't
Yes.
come up for me right away at all until they're probably like somewhat emotionally attached. And that doesn't take very long with me. I'm pretty open
Yeah.
and genuine, and I care and listen well. And so
So could you
um,
ask that question sooner?
yeah, absolute. Yes, I could. I guess the fear, I don't know what the fear there is. It's sort of like that. I mean, the fear for me, the deep, deep fear for me always is that they'll see who I really am and they won't like me and they'll reject me. Do you know? And
Yes,
and
I
so
do.
so above that, that base like the seller fear, I'll call it, is above that is sort of like, well, if I tell them that I'm not really looking for something serious, they'll reject me, and so I don't even get a chance. It's like
Yes.
I
Well,
don't
they
get a
they
chance
they
to even
might,
like let them. Yeah, they might. Yes.
but this other fear that you have about hurting them will be you'll avoid that, right?
Yeah. What do you
so
mean? Say that a different way.
so yeah, well, if you were to if the challenging conversation is
Hmm.
around what they really want,
Oh yeah.
the other flip side to that challenging conversation is being honest about what you really want
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
waiting a longer period of time when the stakes get higher.
Yeah.
You're just bringing in the fear that you're going to be rejected because you
Yeah.
will be rejected. You're afraid of it because it's true,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Because you know that what you want isn't what everybody wants.
Almost. Yeah. I won't say everybody. I mean, I had an amazing interaction with the girl where we were laying in bed actually together, and I was like, so what are you? I was like so terrified to say it, but I had promised the men's group that I would have this conversation before the end of the week. So I did. And I was like, so what are you looking for? And she's like, I don't really believe in relationships. And I was like, what? This is amazing. Like,
I
like
don't
she
believe in
said
them
the
either.
words. I mean, she said the words that I was like, couldn't have possibly imagined her saying. And then it changed everything. I don't know. So I guess it exists out there.
So wait, what
I mean, that,
happened? What happened then?
well, the sad ending to the story is that like I thought we were fine. We even checked in like a few months later and it seemed like we were on the same page. And then she got freaked out because she started to develop a lot of feelings for me.
Mm.
And I think she assumed that I was in the same place as I was from the beginning. And I kind of was and I kind of wasn't. I was like very much open to the possibility of dating just her, but I hadn't said that out loud, and she got scared and then she just like disappeared for 2 months. And I noticed like immediately like the moment that she got distanced. And then even weirder, I mean this is like weird information, but she like came back and was like, "Oh, my father passed away. That's why I haven't seen." And I was like, "What the heck? How did you? I did not know. First of all, that he was sick, and then she's like, "And I have a boyfriend now." And I was like, "What is going on?" And it was just a very, very strange, surreal
Yes.
moment, and it hurt a lot. And I cried, and I cried
What?
for a couple of reasons because
Yeah.
I didn't even know. I mean, I cried for the loss of whatever we had, and I cried because I knew that that's exactly like what I mean. I cried because that was like the game that I was playing. You know what I mean? That I would lose anyone to someone who wanted to commit more than me, you
Yes.
know? And so and according to what I was standing firm on, then that's the way it is, you know what I mean? Like I would
Yes.
never force somebody to be with me, like knowing that I wanted to be open. And yeah. And so it was sort of like a sad, like, oh, this is just sad, and I can't change anything about it. I'm not going to make any grand sweeping promises to you. It just feels sucky, you know?
Well, yeah. I mean, at that point, she had already moved
Yeah.
on to
Yeah.
her next her
Yeah. It
next
was really
thing.
weird.
If you
So,
would, yeah, if you'd go back and this is where I talk. This is where I think conversations do need to be designed.
yeah.
Had you had the right support to bring up the conversation. Your men's group was
Yeah.
supporting you to not lie by omission, right?
Yes.
Right, which is very
Yes.
dangerous.
Yeah.
And to try and open up the conversation about what you both wanted in the right way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the important things is to think about what the right conversation starter is, like how to open up that dialogue
Yeah.
in the appropriate way, and also to just be okay with being afraid,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
to
Yeah. That's
accept
the
that,
key
like,
part.
if you don't get what you want, then that's good, right? If you say, like,
Yeah.
this is what I want, and she's like, oh, this is not what I want, then
Yeah.
that's a successful
That's the
conversation,
best situation. Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
And so the
I believe
fear of
that.
what's going to happen if you don't bring it up should be bigger than the fear if you do bring it up.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, that's 100% accurate. It just, it's short-term gains for versus long-term sort of. Yeah.
Yes. I mean,
Short-term solutions versus long-term solutions. Yeah.
especially if the basement fear is like, essential worthlessness, which is, the
Yeah.
general the general fear that we all suffer from.
Yeah.
And it's not true, right? As you said, like, you're a successful guy and you are able to be attracted and attract others to you. And so
Yeah.
that's not the right um, ground to be working from.
Yeah.
The ground to be working from is like, I'm going to continue to be 100% honest
Yeah.
and 100% kind and
Yeah.
empathic until when I bring up the conversation, we can have a dialogue about it.
But do you think so? I guess you won't have an answer for this, but because it's probably different for each person. But I feel like my homework now is to think about when, at what point in the arc or whatever you call it, the conversation, I bring that question up. And the question's easy. It's just what are you looking for? Why were you on
Yes,
Tinder? What are you
totally.
interested in? And so my question in general to the world is, does that happen before the first kiss, before the first blowjob, or generally, I think for most girls it's before sex, but you know what I
Yes,
mean?
I do.
Um,
And it can be as early as you feel comfortable with it. I've
yeah.
actually, when I
Well,
was,
I never feel comfortable with it, so that's the
right.
problem. I need to like force myself.
Well, no. I wouldn't
Yeah.
say you need to force yourself. You
Well,
need to frame the conversation. You need to find a way to start the conversation in a way that feels authentic to you and that's
yeah.
generous to her, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
I've had women message me saying, right when we're on the messaging platform, saying like, well, what are you here for?
Yeah.
And if that question is pertinent and relevant to them, that means that it's important and relevant for me to be answering it then before we even meet,
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
she
that
only
makes sense.
wants to meet somebody who's willing and interested
Hmm.
in um, starting a relationship. And I
Yeah.
understand your ambivalence, by the way. I've definitely been there. The woman who I'm seeing now, when we first met, she had just gotten out of a big thing and said, I'm not really looking for anything serious right now. And I
Oh.
said, sure, I get that.
See, that's like my perfect woman.
But the next day she was like, I kind of like you.
Oh
Is that
my
okay?
gosh.
And I was like, yeah, that's okay too. because she was
Yeah.
very honest about it. She didn't. And also, here's the thing I think you might want to look at is if you treat it as an ongoing dialogue, even if she says, I think I might want more,
Yeah.
instead of saying, no, I don't want that, you can say,
Yeah.
tell me more about that.
Yes.
What does
of
that mean to
course.
you? Because
Yeah.
if you had gone back to that conversation with that woman
Hmm.
and said, you know, I'm open to the possibility of seeing how more evolves, maybe the ghosting wouldn't have happened.
No, yes, you're right. But I think the problem was that I was robbed of that opportunity. Like
Yes.
she disappeared before in the middle of me feeling that. You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
it was like weird, or I won't say like it was out of my control or the timing was off, but I just feel like I was like having, she was the first woman I had even mentioned a name of in my men's group
Mm.
in the 2.5 years that I'd been in New York. I was like, so there's this woman. I'm feeling excited about her. And then like the next week, it was like, I haven't heard from her all week. I think she's gone. I'm not sure why.
Mm.
And then, you know what I mean? And so it was like, it was just annoying timing is all.
Well, you know, here's the
But
thing about ghosting,
yeah,
which is, I think ghosting is a function of people's lack of a capability to have
yeah,
an uncomfortable conversation.
yeah,
And if she said, you know, maybe she was afraid or uncomfortable about where things were going.
yeah.
Maybe we don't know. And
No, that's yeah, I get it.
and this is, you know, Jeremy hilariously posted, I don't know if you saw this recently. This happens all the time when he was like, why didn't this person respond to this request I sent by email to like look at
Oh
my
yeah,
script?
because he sent it to himself.
He sent it to himself.
Yeah, that's funny.
And, you know, this is a real thing. We're having these conversations in our head. And look, it's important to think these things
Yeah.
through and to sketch them out. But it's also important to be having them with other people, the actual people who are affected by these.
No,
these
you're
thoughts and
right.
feelings.
It's funny. I mean, the actually, I guess the conclusion of that, the part that I forgot about was that I was like so hung up on this girl, and I didn't even know why, because I wasn't certain that I wanted to be in a relationship with her. I just really missed her, and we had such a great connection. And I finally had like talked about it with some of the guys from the group, and I actually like, why don't you write her a note, like just saying what's up? And so I wrote her this like whole long email, kept it in my drafts box for a while, and then I finally hit send, and she's like, thank you so much for writing. My father passed away yesterday. It was like bizarre,
Yes.
the timing of it, because I don't know what she would have said if I had sent it like 3 days earlier when I wrote it, but and she might have said the same sort of thing. But anyways, it just like finally. I mean, I guess I'm agreeing with you
Well, you don't have to
some
agree
way.
with me.
No, but I am like, and I'm not fighting you anyways. I agree, and I did the thing. It just took, I don't know, for some reason I had built it up so much, and it was like
Yes.
the simplest email to just send.
So, you know,
Yeah.
one of the things that I think is important when I think about design is like looking at what's working and trying to adapt principles from it, transporting them
Yeah.
other places. What's so great about your men's dialogue is that it is reliable like a clock. And it
Mhm.
happens every week,
Yeah.
right? And you hold it sacred, right?
Yeah.
You really, really make time and space for it. And that's because you value it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to guess that you sometimes go when you don't feel like going.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Right. Why is that?
Yeah. It's just a commitment to like a something bigger than myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
I get that it's intrinsically valuable, even if my body is tired or whatever.
Yes.
And
So,
and I know that I always feel better afterwards,
right.
regardless.
So you give a lot of respect, time,
Yeah.
attention to this dialogue. And one of the things that's really good about it is that the rhythm of it becomes like a drum beat that has momentum that
Mm.
carries it forward even when you don't necessarily don't want to do it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally makes sense.
Yeah. And so those are
But what's the
some
application there?
I don't know. That's
Oh,
my
okay. I'll think about that.
yeah, that's just something to think about. Is like how could you take that dedication, that rhythm, that respect, and honoring that space to
Yeah.
your love life?
Yeah, that's good. I got it. It's just like a weekly check-in or a weekly making sure I'm staying honest with myself.
Yeah.
A weekly examining my thoughts, feelings around the thing. A weekly sort of fighting that I'm not lovable voice.
Yes. Well, again, don't
Yeah.
fight it. By the way, it's
Oh,
definitely fighting yourself is a challenge.
sure. Or just naming it,
Yeah.
so it
Yeah. Make a
becomes less
date
of
with
a challenge.
yourself to
Hmm.
talk to think about your dating,
Hmm.
right? And
That's
also,
interesting.
like, maybe don't let a week go by where a woman that you are interested or care about, where
Yeah.
you don't call them or text them.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know.
I did make a commitment to myself this year. Like, I'll call it my New Year's resolution or goal or intention was simply to go. I mean, it was vague, but I knew what I was saying. It was to go deeper with the relationships, like the professional and personal relationships that I already have.
Yeah.
So that involved like deleting Tinder and Bumble from my phone.
Mm.
I pay a guy in my men's group $5 every day that I have one of them on my phone. Like, it's a very time sucking, not helpful sort of thing for me.
How are you
And,
meeting women right now?
like, anyway, I go to networking events all the time. I shoot weddings. I'm constantly meeting new people, and but the point is, like, I don't need to meet new people. That's the point. I was more or less dating like 8 to 10 people in New York, and like it wasn't fair sort of to any of them or myself, and some of them I didn't need to be seeing, so I just made a huge list of like people I just really didn't need to be seeing,
Yes.
women I didn't need to be seeing. And it was like, okay, but who's good in my life? And that's it. Like, there's just like a handful of people who I want to spend more time with, and I recognize that that's valuable to me, even though my body, like the addict in me, wants to go shallow and wide
Yes.
versus deep and small. And so it was just like a nice hedging in of myself that's worked. That's felt great. It also means that like I might have a Friday evening where I forgot to make plans and I've got nothing going on and I'll just feel that loneliness or that frustration or the fears or whatever that is. And it's been good. It's been really, really good. And I've kept up on that. So going deeper with my personal and professional relationships, I think will be a huge long-term gain for me.
Yeah. If that's where you want to, as my dad used to say, if you
Yeah,
want to find water, you dig one well deep.
yeah, that's funny. Yeah, yeah, that's great.
And
So
it
so
sounds like
that's
you're
in
getting a
there.
lot out of that, which is great.
Yeah, and I will it'll slow me down enough to like be aware when I'm meeting someone else new. That's
Yes.
important too.
You
So
you don't have to give that same energy to one woman, but I want you
mm,
to be open to the idea that you could get some value out of that as well.
yes, I'm totally aware of that. I am. I think it's a gain and a sacrifice in a lot of ways, and so
Yeah,
I'm not sure if all the gains are worth all the sacrifices, but
yeah, it's
something I hope to
impossible to
try
know.
out.
And the other thing to think about, I think, is that life is not something that can be optimized.
Sure.
Um, you can't. It's very challenging to like look at all of the
Hmm.
factors and the
Hmm.
things and say, all right, here we go,
Yeah, it's
optimization
not
button.
a net zero
Yeah.
game. Yeah,
Well,
I
life
understand.
is an inherently wasteful and complicated process. Like
Yeah,
the a tree makes way more leaves than it needs,
uh, that's
and
funny.
it doesn't. A tree is not efficient, and it doesn't think about the gains and losses that are available to it. It just
Sure.
does what it does.
Yeah, I like that.
And
It's very zen of you, Daniel.
well, I just want you to
No,
accept that
I
you
totally
are the
believe that.
way
Yeah,
you are. Like if you
yeah,
are this way, then you know allow yourself to flourish in the way that you are. If you don't start to accept yourself the way you
yeah,
are and feel rooted and confident in the requests
yeah,
you're making of another person, they're not going to be able to respect that in
yeah.
you.
That's great. It totally makes sense. Dang, now I want to talk to you about business stuff.
Okay, that's yeah.
But do you mind? Just like
No, I'm happy to
a
shift
little.
gears. This is your
I
time.
feel like I got a big chunk out of that, so thank you.
Hey, this is Daniel. We're at about the halfway point, so this is a great time for you to get up, stretch your legs, get some popcorn, fill up your soda. If you're in the car, stay focused. If you have your hands free, this is also a great moment to head over to theconversationfactory.com to sign up for the newsletter. I send out more detailed write-ups, insights, and tools from these conversations, and I'd love to share them with you. So head over to theconversationfactory.com and stay in the loop.
For me, as much as I am an artist and a photographer, like I was a philosophy major and I taught middle school math. Like I'm a math mind and I appreciate systems. And so for me, like it's the easiest takeaway is something like, somewhere around like date 3, I need to ask the girl. And it won't be like that rigid, but some, the intuition around date 3 or 4 is like, what are you interested in?
Yeah, and I would
And I appreciate that.
and I would also suggest you just journal a little bit on like
Oh yeah.
in design thinking we call them statement starters. It's like how might I frame that question in the most
open way.
Open, generous, interesting,
I understand.
welcoming.
I can do that. That's not a challenge for me. But I totally get it. No, I think I can be very politically savvy if I need to be. I totally get it. So yeah, but wait, what are you doing in your career?
Well, so me right now, I'm doing a lot of design thinking trainings. So I go into corporations and I try to get them to like own a new mindset of prototyping and testing ideas that are based on real information from real people. So teaching people a lot about user research and synthesizing information and also prototyping and testing. And a lot of it revolves around this idea of experience design and mapping journeys and experiences of people and being really as visual as possible. And that's the work that I tend to do. I do that with a bunch of different companies, and I also do a lot of follow-up coaching. And that's the thing that's really been very rewarding, is not just doing these 2 or 3 day workshops, but supporting groups of people over at least 90 days, meeting with them about once a month to see if they're actually applying things and getting benefit from that and getting them back on track. And it's a lot.
Yeah, because it's very easy to get inspired in a day and then do nothing like right afterwards.
And, I'm doing a lot of work this last month and a half on the podcast, interviewing people who are what I would term great conversation designers in lots of different domains, and coaching in this modality, because it's something that is interesting to me, is making sure that all these different components of ourselves are harmonized. Life coach sometimes feels very soft and fuzzy, and then there's sort of the business side sometimes seems too hard. And I think what I want is something in the middle where we are giving some soft fuzzies to the business stuff and giving some solid frameworks and tools to the interior stuff. And that's just me.
That makes sense. That's great. That's perfect. I really like that.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what are you hoping to shift in the conversation you're having with your financial and your business world?
Less financial, more like business goals. I made a big statement on Facebook before I moved to New York 3.5 years ago, which was, I'm moving to New York. I'm not leaving until I shoot the cover of Vogue and Rolling Stone. And so that was it. It got a great response. But it was true. Like I really want to shoot name brand stuff, like lifestyle commercial stuff for JP Morgan Chase or Anthropologie or Levi's or anything like that, and Apple, and shoot for magazines. And it's an interesting world that I've jumped into since I moved to New York, and sort of navigating that terrain. I get it. It's not complicated. It's just sort of like a very long-term sort of relational process.
Yeah.
A lot less to do with like photography skills and much more to do with who you know and what you know about them or how you know how well you know them. Um, and so I find myself. Oh, I find. Oh, so here's the crutch of it all. I found myself growing a lot the first 2 years in New York,
Mm.
and then last year I felt like I plateaued a little bit, and I lost sight of my bigger goals and just let myself be busy,
Mm.
um, which was great for my whatever, like earning money, but it was bad for like for the dot goal at the I didn't I like took my eyes off of the prize, and I felt that I was like, oh my gosh, I just earned the same amount of money, I kept all the same clients, I did good work, and I didn't move forward at all. And there's a felt sense of like just sort of vibrating in place instead of like stepping forward on a timeline or a
Yeah.
trajectory.
Yeah. A lot of the nervous energy and not
Does
the
that
sort
make
of,
sense?
yeah, it
Yeah.
absolutely does.
Which is also partially why now I can say my New Year's resolution again, because it applies directly to that as well. I wanted to go deeper with the professional and personal relationships that I already have, because I know some really good people in New York City, and if I'm not sort of massaging those relationships, then I'm missing the point, I think. That's all. So now I'm in a space of like, I created accountability group with Jeremy just to fight this whole like busyness thing that takes me away from the longer term stretches that I'm trying to make. Um, and the bigger thing is like, in order to shoot for, I don't know, JP Morgan Chase, like for their next commercial campaign, like I need to have a relationship with a creative agency, but the only way I get access to a creative agency is usually through a photographer rep. And the only way I get a photographer rep is if I build a printed portfolio that I can show to them. And the only way I even get to show it to them is usually through an introduction via someone else. So
Hmm.
there's a lot of like does that make sense? There's a
It
lot of
does.
in
Yeah.
between steps there. And then just building the damn printed portfolio was like the biggest thing for me. Like it just became such a low point of priority to me because it felt so tedious and daunting
Yes.
going through, like, I don't know, there's 50,000 images to choose 60 of them, right? And then
Yes.
and then print them and pay the money to print them and put them in a thing and handle the prints, and then
It's a major
so
commitment.
there's a lot. Yeah, so but it felt like, I'll do it the next month or tomorrow or when I have time, but I never,
Yeah. Are
whoever
you
has time.
making time for that? It sounds like
Well,
that's
now
where.
I am.
Okay. Good.
But I wasn't. That's what happened last year. 2016 was like a wash in terms of that,
It
you
took you a
know?
whole year to not do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is your process now
Well, now
for
it's
dipping
like,
into that?
okay, well, with my accountability group that I created, it was like, if we're meeting each month and I set one goal that I know will move me forward in this trek, if I don't do the thing, then there's like a consequence that also fights against some habits that have prevented me. For example, like if I don't buy the prints for the portfolio by December 31st, whatever money I was going to spend on that, I would just like throw on the ground outside of my apartment. And it was like $300 or something, but
How long is the
it,
process of doing it? Like, why aren't you done yet?
I printed the portfolio. I
Oh, you
finished it on
did.
December 31st, so
Oh,
I ordered the
congratulations.
prints. It was great. But there's I needed the consequence and I needed the
Yes.
the deadline
So
for
now
it
that
to
you
feel
have it in
significant.
hand, it's been
Well,
3 months into the year. Are
yeah,
you having the dialogues? Obviously having a conversation with an artifact is very different than having a conversation without an artifact. Now you can go in and say, "This is my work." Are
yeah,
you
but
having those
okay. So
conversations?
just that one sentence sounds really easy, but it's extremely difficult. To
Yes,
just go in and have a conversation means that they respond to my email or my phone call, which most
correct.
of them don't. Secondly, it means that they're interested, which most of them aren't because they already have like
Yes.
a full house of photographers, and
Mm-hmm.
why would they take a risk on someone that they don't know or haven't met
Sure.
or don't need? And so there's a weird I hit another fake wall there where I realized I need to sort of tap the contacts that I have now
Mm.
and get that introduction so that I could sit down with somebody and do the thing. And so that's what's happened in the last 3 months. Nothing, I guess.
And you're being
I'm in the period where I need to take on the favors, where I
yes.
ask
Yeah,
somebody for,
make call in
yeah,
your chips
yeah,
on this one.
yeah.
Yeah, because what's a reasonable number of calls or reach outs or appointments to be making about this? Like, have you made a concrete goal for the number of
No,
conversations about my portfolio that I'm going to start?
no, I haven't. Well, no, I haven't. I mean, one of my goals was to like reach out to 5 people and show my portfolio to 2 organizations, like either a creative agency or like a photo rep. But I didn't. I just again last month put it off, and so I had to take my consequence, which was like a self-imposed cave day.
Yes.
And then even then I didn't do the thing again, so I need to do another cave. Like there's just sort of I don't know that you're hearing right now where I am sabotaging myself. I'm not sure what it is.
Well, so the other question I have for you is like, why do you want to take pictures for Vogue and Rolling Stone
Hmm.
if you've got a wedding photography business that's flourishing, and if
Yeah.
you've got this other business that sells the photo boxes, right?
Yeah,
That
yeah,
you're
yeah.
supporting with the
Everything's going
podcast.
good. No, but it's not. I've had this conversation with Jeremy even. I mean, and I don't want to judge this, but I want to be great. Like I want to be an Annie Leibovitz in this world, and I want to be a Bruce Weber, and I want to be
Mm,
someone who is not only validated by my brides and grooms who have no particular artistic eye. I want to be validated by photo editors who have seen like years and years of work, and I want to be validated by
yes.
JP Morgan Chase, and then I literally
Yes.
want to walk down the street from the Norwood Club and see my photos in a window at HSBC or whatever that bank is.
Yes.
And because I walk by there every day and I'm like, I know I can do that.
Yeah.
I just I'm like 2 steps behind. I'm like 75% of the way there. So I want to be great and I want to be validated in that world. And
Yes.
somehow that will make me feel worthy as a photographer, or I'll have made it. In my mind, like I'll just have made it. I'm fine. Like financially, like I didn't even need to move out of Santa Barbara. I would have been fine. Like I live very, very far beneath my means.
Yes.
And I was just gonna live a life of like 50 to $60,000 a year, doing whatever. But I didn't want that. I wanted to be published, and I wanted to be able to like, I want to be great.
Yes.
I've wanted that for a long time.
Well, I mean, if that is really what you
Yeah,
want,
yeah,
then you need to um, work in a way that's going to make that happen.
yeah,
And, when I think about rapid prototyping or um, infusing a new way of thinking into how to make this happen, it may be that this sort of piecemeal show my portfolio approach is not the right way. I
mm,
remember one of my teachers, this guy Kevin O'Callahan, he built like this 30-foot high paper mache thing and put it on a
oh,
truck
geez.
and like wheeled it outside. Of course, this was the 80s when you could do shit like that.
No, that's amazing. Yeah, yeah, I get it.
And he just, parked it outside the building where, he was having an interview and they asked for where his portfolio was. He pointed out the window. He would do like that sort of a thing.
That's so freaking brilliant.
And so maybe,
But like,
if you
how
want to
much
be
money did
great,
that cost him?
I don't know.
Ah, and time. I
And
get it.
time.
See, I just spoke my fear. Like, I'm extremely frugal, and I don't want to like put money into something that I'm not sure.
Yeah, but
Like,
you're being a little bitch about $300 on this
yeah,
book and
I
putting a
know.
year and a half of avoidance into it. And you
Yeah,
say
it's
you want to
so dumb.
become great, but you're playing a game of chess.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And you shouldn't be playing a game of chess if you're trying to be great. You should be trying to sweep all the pieces off the board.
Yeah.
And so you're having an incremental conversation, with greatness, and you should be having a much more dramatic conversation around greatness.
That's really interesting.
And also, like, here's the thing, like, the time when greatness is, appointed upon you through a bunch of tastemakers is very, I think that time might have gone. And you might want to ask yourself, how might I create my own type of greatness?
And why do you think that time might be gone?
Well, I feel like also it takes time. You have to put that time in.
Yeah,
and obviously Annie Leibovitz wasn't Annie Leibovitz when she started.
No, my understanding too is that, like, you look at any magazine cover and then go research that photographer. They were getting published before I was born, basically. And so I understand that there's like a 40-year sort of stretch. It's a marathon, it's not a sprint. And I know that I'm like 3.5 years in New York right now. So what I want, and I have the perspective that it's a long-term game.
Yes.
And I'm just taking any steps I can to make sure I accelerate that.
Yeah, well, that's fair. I think on one hand, that's a really good attitude to have to keep you working. But I also think you should be asking yourself, like, what's a way that I can make my own crown?
Sure. That's interesting. What would that look like?
I don't know. I mean, I think you're carving out a lot for yourself as it is. But I'm sure that there is, when I told you Kevin O'Callahan's, giant thing, you were like, oh, that's ridiculously awesome. Like,
I know, I totally get it though. I get it, like, on every level. I get it.
And if you think you're that great and you're just waiting for someone else to agree with you, then just start acting great,
Yeah. That's true. That's good.
And that's what I would sort of.
Do you have like big, hairy, audacious goals like this?
It's funny. I have, for myself, decided to try and enjoy a little bit more incremental for a while. I think the sort of the seasons of the conversations with my own greatness. I think I had a business for 3 years and really enjoyed my small level of fame and recognition. Watching my newsletter get bigger and hearing that big agencies were noticing what we were doing, and
that's cool.
Feeling like I was hey, I'm a solid mid-level player.
Yeah.
That's funny. That is great. And having my partners sort of buy me out and going through the process of sort of figuring what I wanted to do next, I am trying to be a little bit more on this is going to take a couple of years. So the time I'm taking with myself to do the podcast, and I'm writing a couple of different things, and I'm just sort of, I'm comfortable with the level of incubation right now. Winter, I think of like the winter, spring, summer, and fall of creativity. And this is sort of, a lot happens during winter, a lot of roots and a lot of preservation and organization happens that allows spring to come to being. And so I feel like I'm very much in the sort of the winter, spring of this current round of creativity, and feel pretty good about that for myself.
Right. I like that.
Thank you. Me too. Me too.
Nice. So you've tasted like a little bit of the big game too.
Yeah. I mean, the mid-sized game, but sure. I think we did,
mid-sized game.
We did all right, and it felt good to be a thing, as it were. And it's hard as an individual.
It's also a hustle, yeah.
It's a hustle, and as an individual, I think wanting that feeling of being recognized as me is a real challenge, right? And I think I go through the exact same things you're going through, which is, being okay where I am and hustling, and also like try not to hustle too hard because I want to enjoy life. So it's a bit of a.
And I mean, to be fair, I enjoy life a lot.
Yeah, I get that sense from you.
And so, yeah, I don't know. I think I figured that formula out a long time ago somehow, first, which was great. And then I'm still in the middle of that. Like, every time I'm in New York, I want to be moving forward somehow.
Yes, it's an addiction in New York City, the constant drumbeat of forward.
Yeah.
Indeed. Well, Phil,
So,
thank you so much, man. I
yeah.
really appreciate this.
Absolutely.
I will do my best to remove names.
Yeah,
in
cool.
the final
Whatever you do.
minutes.
That's fine. Thanks.
And thank you, Phil. Have a great
All right.
weekend, man.
Yeah, you too. I'll talk
Okay.
to you soon.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And we're going to leave it right there. Thanks for sticking around. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on iTunes or Google Play. Thanks for your fine attention, and I'll see you next time.